Hello and welcome to the SP Marketplace video training tutorials. Today we're going to be covering how to create, modify, and remove columns within a SharePoint list. So, for today's example, I'm going to be using our finance site, which is set up as a department. You can add, modify, and remove columns from any SharePoint list that comes from your SP Marketplace modules, as they're 100% customizable by you. You can also use this to help add, remove, and modify columns that you may have on your own SharePoint sites and lists and libraries that you have built around. So, for my example, I'm going to be creating a new column on our service request list. Typically, you can create new columns within a SharePoint list one of two ways. The first way is directly through a view. So this is the all service request items view. If you were to scroll the page over all the way over to the right, the last added option that you will have always up here at the top columns listed is going to be add column. And you'll have an initial couple of choices to choose which type of column you want to add directly to your particular view and your list. That way you can track that piece of information. Now, there is a second way you can do this, which gives you a little bit more options as to what you're going to be doing for your column. And the way to do that is to go up here to the cogwheel and go to list settings for the list that you're on. If you scroll down the page, there's going to be an option where it shows you all the columns. We're going to see all the columns built for our SP Marketplace module here right now. And you can also create a new column. You can create a new one from an existing site column. You can do column ordering, or you can also index your columns. Today we're simply going to be creating a new column. Now when you're filling out your column, as you can see, we have the same type of options that we saw when we were creating our column through the list. But here we also have a couple other additional pieces of information, such as our description, whether that column contains information is a required field or not. Maybe if you wanted to enforce some unique values for this particular column, you can. That way you can't have duplicate pieces of information within the column. But first you really need to choose which type of column it's going to be. A single line of text simply means it's going to be one line of text that you can use. No formatting, no insert of pictures, just free text. You can then have multiple lines of text, which is also like a single line of text, but this does allow for rich text. So you can format your information in terms of titles, highlights, bolds, as well as inserting of pictures, videos, other types of information like that, like our description field. You can also make it a choice field, which will appear as a drop-down menu, as radio buttons, or as checkboxes, depending on how you build it. Typically, us at SP Marketplace have one built, which are going to be a drop-down menu. You can enter in your choices on each separate line down here at the bottom, with the drop-down menu then showing with those choices. You can also make it a strict number field, so you can only type in numbers into that particular field, and then you can specify a minimum number and a maximum number to then be put in there. You can also make it a currency. So within the currency fields, you can put in a minimum amount and a maximum amount, just like our number field, but you can also choose your currency format with what SharePoint offers you. This would be good for budget fields, which is going to be one of the columns that I'm going to be creating today as our test one. You can also use dates and times. You to then put in a date and time populated on that, and this is what we use for our due dates, close dates fields, and other fields like that to better help determine when our SharePoint service request or our case or work order, whichever site you're working out of, that way you can see which dates and times the actual case or work order is related to. Another useful one is a lookup field. So let's say, for instance, this is on the actual service request list within our finance department site. If I wanted to create a lookup that looks into our department resources contacts list to see if there's other contacts that I may want to relate the service request to, I can make that as a lookup field, and choose to get that information from that contacts list. And then I can then determine what I want to show from that list. I want to show either the last name, modified, created, version, first name. I want to see full name of that contact. So this will allow you to then look into other pieces of information that are stored within other lists. This is a very useful field that we like to use within SharePoint and within our products. You can also use a yes/no checkbox, which is one of the fields that we use for our knowledge base articles. So if a box is marked as no, then you check mark the box as yes, a action triggers and it creates a knowledge base article for you from your service request, or from your case, or from your work order. These are very simple checkboxes, and they can have specific triggers on them set with our smart tools, but you can also use them to your advantage as well. You can also use a person or group field. We use this for our requester field as well as our assign to. So this will look into your people. Also choose from a specific SharePoint group. So if you only wanted to look into people and groups, but then you only wanted to focus on a specific group of people, you can make it so that you can only put people from that group within this field. You can also create a hyperlink or picture, which you will then be able to then insert a URL for whichever link it's going to be taking you, and it'll automatically format the link for you so you can click on it. That way you don't have to insert a link like in a multiple lines of text field. And those are the ones that we primarily use in what I will be covering today. Now, as with any other column, they all have the same option to add this to a default view. So typically, whenever we talk about pre-existing SP Marketplace modules and lists, we recommend that it not be turned on and checkboxed, because this will add it to your all items view, and depending on how many columns you are creating, it may increase the scroll length of how far your users are scrolling from left to right on your page, and it could just be too long for your users to just go from left to right and read all the information about it. That's why we recommend you to create your different views. That way they can show different pieces of information, and all you need to do is just switch the view. Now I'm going to be creating a currency field with you today. I'm going to be creating a currency field with you today, and I'm going to be labeling mine budget. I can require that this item contains information, but I'm going to leave that as no for now. I want to make sure that my minimum number is going to be $1, and my maximum, nobody can exceed $1,000 when they submit this. My default value for currency will be set to my minimum, which is 1. That way, whenever they're submitting a service request, it could be 1 or it could be 0. Like if I wanted this to also be 0, or my default and minimum can be 0. My currency is in the United States in dollars, and I'm not going to add this to my default view. Once you're happy with your column, you press OK, and now your column is a part of your list, and you can find it over here on the left-hand navigation. So here's my field budget listed as my currency field. Now I can add it to one of my views. Say for instance I wanted to add this to my all items view. You can head to your all items and add it as a part of the view. So I'm going to find my budget field, press OK. And now as you can see, I can see my budget field in here. When I go to insert my budget, I can then type in however much I want that's going to be a part of it. And when I save my items, it'll automatically populate it with however much I wanted to put in there in terms of my currency field. You can use these to add to each of your lists and libraries, as well as the SP Marketplace modules that we have built for you, and you can customize them out to track whatever information your business has, as well as this will help with building out any other lists and libraries that you may want to create in the future. One of the last things to do here with our column is to actually remove it. You can actually delete columns that you no longer want to track within a list. That's very simple, just by going to your list settings of your list, clicking on your column that you no longer want to have a part of your list, just going down to the bottom and clicking delete. Now we won't be able to track our budget anymore through our list, and now it's effectively removed from our list. Thank you, and this has been a tutorial on how to create, modify, as well as remove a column within SharePoint.